Ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to yet another amazing episode of India HR Live, where change agents transform the world of HR. And today we are so lucky enough to have such an amazing panelist, woman power, right? Women leaders out there who wanting to make a difference in this world when it comes to women and their career. So stay tuned. If you're watching India HR Live, please feel free to tune in to our hashtag as well. Our hashtag on Twitter is hashtag India HR Live. If you feel to ask any questions or share any comments that you wanted to become a part of the conversation, we really appreciate that and we really appreciate your support. So without further ado, let's meet our guest and then we will open the panel discussion. So stay tuned. And first of all, let me welcome Dr. Soundarya. Dr. Soundarya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Nisha. It's great
Well,
to be here.
thank you. Well, thank you so much. I know when I approached Dr. Soundarya, she selected the topic and she kind of gave me the idea of going forward with this topic. And then we pull a panel together and we have it today. So, Dr. Soundarya, we would really, really appreciate if you can talk a little more about who you are, what you do, and why you are choosing your career of making a difference among women.
Thank you so much, Nisha. 2005 was when we actually realized that the Indian woman professional needs a voice, which is slightly different from those of her, counterparts around the world. So when we created AvtarIvan.com for the first time with a small network of about 120 women, little did we realize that we would kind of go on to create something that was, new and different in this country, primarily because words diversity and inclusion were not even part of the corporate Indian vocabulary back then. So we have been working on this space, to some extent looking at how we can help women with second careers, and I'm very delighted that we are part of the process of second career creation or career re-entry creation for almost about 6,000 to 7,000 women in this country today, and we have been working with about a dozen organizations whose second career programs have been influenced by us. But even more than that, we have come to realize that it's about sustainable career pathing for women, and it's not just about the fact that their trajectories are likely to be with a whole lot of ups and downs, and therefore they would require different types of enablers and support. So we are now beginning to look at the ecosystem as a whole. In my organization Avatar, where we work with an NGO called Avatar Human Capital Trust. There's also the organization called Flexi Careers India, which works in the space of women's workforce participation, and the organization Avatar Career Creators, which works directly with companies in making sure that we have a lot of jobs on offer to provide women at early career, mid career, and matured career stages. So that's the work we do, and it's a fantastic time to be a woman in India today. uh, I personally believe that organizations are definitely opening up to realize the phenomenal potential that an Indian woman brings to the table, and the fact that she has so much more to give. In spite of the fact that she does the double horse riding throughout her life. So I think it's fabulous, the kind of work that we do, and I can see so many partners who have now also joined the conversation and the dialogue, and I'm delighted that there is a forum that you have now created through India HR Live, where we all can speak about the topic that all of us feel so passionate about. So thanks for the opportunity, Nisha.
Well, thanks, Dr. Salteria, for being here with us today, and we really inspire what you do. And let's meet Sari. Hey, Sari, you have been out there making a difference. I know you just finished a summit just a while ago, not even 10 minutes ago, right? And then you are here joining with us at India HR Live. So tell us a little more about what you do and how was the summit and why you did that summit.
Right. So what I really do is I run a career platform for women called Sheroes.in, and essentially it is a go-to community for women. Uh, it's a career destination where what comes together foremost is conversations. What comes together is storytelling. What comes together is shared resources, events, a whole lot of gazing the horizon, whole lot of uh, figuring out what are the opportunities both in corporate employment, flex employment, and entrepreneurial models of self-employment. And so the Shiro Summit is really a culmination of a lot of work that we do do through the year to take it offline, take it to an audience. And a lot of what we do is really bringing more women, more companies, more stakeholders into this conversation, making it open to all. And but at heart, what sits together is that it's a community, and there's a lot of storytelling and conversations that are part of it.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and look forward to hearing more and more inspiring thoughts from you. And let's meet Jessica Miller Merrill. Well, she has been on the show, so Jessica, welcome back. And thank you for being here with us today. So, if there is anyone out there who doesn't know of you, Jessica, we would appreciate if you can talk a little more about you, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Jessica Miller Merrill. I'm J Miller Merrill on Twitter. I am the founder of a human resources and workplace blog called Blogging for Jobs, and a lot of my work is about kind of aggregating conversations and helping generate discussion around important topics. I have been in the HR world for 15 years and am a mom to a wonderful 5.5-year-old who definitely has changed my world. I have recently thought and been talking a lot more about women in the workplace, particularly in the field of human resources, in the position of founders of technology startups as this area is really growing. And why are there not more women founders in human resources, which in the United States is predominantly dominated by women as practitioners? So excited to be here to talk more about this topic as a mom and as a woman who tries very hard to sort of break the glass ceiling when it comes to influencers in HR. I'm excited to talk about the topic.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for bringing us that perspective of women across the world. So let's meet the other person, Amrita Tripathi. Hey, Amrita, welcome back to India HR Live. I know, right? At India HR Live, we always talk about HR, and bringing in HR folks. But this time, we really wanted somebody outside of HR. And luckily, our friend Ruji kind of introduced us to Amrita Tripathi, and she is a journalist of, former CNN employee, but currently she is a writer and a freelance journalist. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I was beginning to wonder why I'm here. I'm the only non-HR person. I should send you all a copy of my CV as soon as this is done. But no, I've been a journalist for more than a decade, and I'm taking a bit of a break from that, freelancing right now, but also working sort of as a consultant in the health development space as of 2.5 weeks ago. So I thought it was a fascinating conversation to have, especially because you've been talking about how women especially, sort of plan out their careers and how we look at some of the challenges, because I completely agree with Dr. Sundarya. It's a great time to be a woman, I think, in India, but especially for, some of us are very privileged indeed to be having this conversation in the first place. But there's still many challenges, and I think it's something that I'm looking forward to exploring with you guys.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, and we really, really, really appreciate that. So let's meet, last but not least, we have a wonderful person, Simran Oberoi. She has been on the show. She hasn't been on the show, but she is watching our show regularly and wanting to become a part of the show, and for this time, we have her on. Simran, are you there? For some reason, we are not able to see us, or we are not able to hear us. I guess it's because of some technical glitches, as usual. Google Plus, we cannot avoid that. So, but we will get her back on the show sometime within a while, I guess. So, ladies, we all know that managing work and life is always a challenging aspect, and you have been out there for more than a decade. You are a working mom and a successful woman leaders who have been in the industry for many years, who know the drill, and now you are advising and mentoring other women out there when it comes to how to become successful in a career that we would love to do. So, but unfortunately, we have some life events like marriage and unfortunate life. I'm sorry, fortunate life events like marriage, unfortunate life events like miscarriage. Let me say that happens a lot, but for as a challenging aspect for women when it comes to advancing in their career, right? So these all life events comes as a career crisis. For example, me, I was back in India in the corporate world working as an HR in a leading telecommunications company. But now when I got married and I followed my husband back to United States, and over here I had the challenges of visa restrictions, which I'm not allowed to work here. So this is a career break for me. So personally, I would really appreciate hearing from you all and even learning from you all. And if you all can mentor me, that would really be great too. So let's kick off the discussion, the panel discussion on, are women really intentional about their career, and if so, how should they be? And let's start the discussion with Dr. Soundarya, and then I would really appreciate if you all can chime in and then share your thoughts, and then we will move on with other thoughts. Dr. Soundarya, back to you.
Yes, thanks, Nisha. So why did this whole point of this discussion come up? I mean, why do we need to actually deliberate about the fact, are women really intentional about their careers? So I would actually take this discussion back, to the early 90s, which was when women started joining the Indian workplace in large numbers. And I'm speaking very specifically about the Indian workplace. So with the combination of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, you had many industries that came into India which were very women-friendly, which were, could offer careers that actually lended themselves well to the woman's, personality and behavior, especially as she was during that time, in the whole time frame. So when she started joining the workplace in larger numbers, and I would say at that point, which is towards the end 80s, the women's workforce participation rate in India was at about 19%. It slowly grew. Today we are at about 26% women's workforce participation. But the one thing that we are seeing is the fact that women tend to take breaks to a very large extent. There is a very prominent piece of research that says that 48% women under the age of 30 take a break at least once in their career. So when we started working on this aspect of why do women take breaks, and if they do, why do they want to return, and how many of them really want to return? So when this kind of caught our imagination and fancy, and we decided to invest a lot of time of our own lives into this, a very important and crucial aspect that really came out was the fact that considering that she is still a recent entrant into the workplace, the Indian woman I'm saying, has not been very intentional about her career. So it's more about just following a path. It's more about accidents that happen to a very large extent. And I'm not talking about, the group that typically is there on panels like this. I'm talking even about the, set of women who are in the SEC classification of maybe A minus or B plus or B, which typically means that their path post education is one that is really not very certain. So keeping this in mind, the idea is, are women intentional about their careers? If so, what makes them thus? Is it a combination of the way they have been brought up? Has it got a lot to do with the educational sector, the kind of role models they are exposed to? Does it have to do with the fact that they themselves feel empowered to take those choices, to make life choices? Is that the reason? So what's this secret formula that goes into making women successful and pursuing an economically beneficial career. When we speak about economically beneficial, obviously we are talking about every type of career. It could be entrepreneurship, it could be franchising, it could be training, it could be micro franchising as we call it these days. It could be a professional career. So what is it that actually makes the woman pursue it? So that's really a $1,000,000 question. And we are still in the process of trying to understand it. One very clear message, or one very clear purpose that women see in this is the fact that a lot of them wish to lead purposeful lives, and there is a big need to contribute financially to the family. So is that the only reason? I'm now looking forward to more on this discussion to try and see if we can uncover more of those facts.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that debatable topic when it comes to women career and career crisis, career grabs, and a lot to discuss. But before we get to that, Sari, you have done many panel discussions regarding this particular topic, and number of times I know, and you have listened from many thought leaders out there and many women successful leaders out there. What's your thought when it comes to women facing the career gaps? So are they really intentional when it comes to getting back to their career? And if so, how should they be?
Right. So there are two sides to this story. One is, I think, a career. So what we define as a career may not be termed as a career by another person. To some people, it may mean as something to do, or it may really correspond to the life situation they are in. And we did a report last year where we published 8 different kind of tracks, which essentially point out to the life cycle of a woman's career. And the thing we learned was that while everyone goes into a top gear and slows down on ramps and off ramps, and these are very peculiar cycles, there were four drivers of career cycles: fear, guilt, pride, self-esteem. At any given point in time, one of these emotions, one of these values is a key driver. So for a lot of women, say from the economically weaker sections of society, fear is a big driver. You need to work to survive, right? Whereas at somebody's level who doesn't need to work for money, somebody who doesn't need to sort of get out there, she needs to work because it's a question of identity and self-esteem. And there are some of us who've gone through the ranks. That's our conditioning, being that we got to work because we got to have a career. That's all we knew. We didn't know any other reality. And of course now, because I think careers are becoming mainstream, there are a lot more opportunity, there are a lot more options. A lot of women are now being induced into guilt of not working, right? So I think these are all choices that are available to women, and irrespective of the career stages or life stage they are in, these are so. A lot of women, let me sort of make a little sweeping statement here. A lot of women want to do something, they just don't call it a career, right? So a lot of women who run home-based businesses, a lot of women who are self-employed, a lot of women who have a skill but maybe don't monetize it so well, a lot of women who volunteer, a lot of women who are even in corporate careers. So while I think except for the true blue corporate ladder, a lot of women don't view it as the career, or at least the labeling is not that of a career. But at heart, what they're doing at the back end is really the career. Right?
It is indeed. It is indeed, and thank you so much for sharing that thought, because currently in my life I can see that, because right now my career is all about doing the shows and writing about it and sharing my perspective, and even becoming I'm not saying a thought leader, but I'm saying a person who can share on what's happening in the industry and helping others to stay current. It is indeed a career, blogging, right? And who else is better person than Jessica to talk about blogging and making that as a career choice? So Jessica, what do you say when it comes to, you started your career as a corporate HR person, and then you have evolved into entirely a different career, being a thought leader out there when it comes to becoming #1 career blog out there, blogging for jobs, building that blog, and how was your transition? So tell us, Were you intentional in that beginning, or how did that transition happen for you?
So most of my like career moments have been accidental. Even getting into human resources wasn't something that was intentional. It was a decision that was made for me. I was accidentally placed into human resources because they thought I had a good personality for the role in working for Target. And blogging was just something that I started because I wanted to kind of build a reputation for myself locally, not anything certainly nationally or globally, but I also wanted to create a candidate pipeline because I was recruiting, and originally Blogging for Jobs was about the job seeker, not necessarily covering HR and recruiting topics. And fortunately, in my life, I have had a lot of sort of happy accidents where different things have occurred, and it has allowed me to kind of go down this path. I am very open on my blog, and so I will write about very personal things that have happened to me. And one of them that I think we should maybe try to talk about is, I mean, you mentioned like life circumstances like joys and then tragedy. And so earlier this year, I actually had a miscarriage, and it happened, and the impact that it had on my career was really traumatic. It was such a jolt for me. I had been a mother for 5.5 years, and to have something like that really kind of set me back. And I think that it does take a toll on your self-esteem and kind of redefines you as a person. With the blogging and the writing, I spend a lot of time talking and thinking and speaking with other people. They're my inspiration. I hadn't really thought about women in the workplace outside of being a mom until I was a mom, and then the things that you have to go through, the expectations of your child's school, the expectations of your boss, how you manage all those things, plus your dog or your friends, and then your husband and other extended family members. It's a lot to take on. Some days are good, and some days are not so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing it openly. And I read that blog post that you read about your feelings, and we really, really appreciate that. It's kind of building confidence among others who had already gone through that situation but couldn't have that courage to share it online. So let's hear from Amrita as well when it comes to are women intentional about their career. Amrita, you have been a former CNN journalist. I know journalism is such a challenging job for any woman out there, and you were successful in that job, and currently you kind of transitioned into your own entrepreneurship, I guess. So how was that transition? Were you intentional? And tell us that journey.
Sure. I mean, and I really want to say thank you to Jessica for sharing that story, because, part of what we do as journalists is, and we realize when you connect with people, part of it is having the conversations, and it's really a brave thing to do. It helps, I think, other people also hear, how you get through these difficult moments. It's also interesting you talked about, Jessica, like happy accidents. So I think my career has had several of those. I am in a transition phase right now. Nisha, I wouldn't say I'm in an entrepreneurship role right now, but again, the odd one out. But it's fascinating because I think, of course, it's never. I mean, it's never a bad time to pick up a new skill set. I think we have to always look to evolve, and I'm really enjoying the challenges that are facing me right now. But it strikes me, even as we're having this conversation, when it comes to women, like it's even in the best case scenario, you're talking about the work-life balance. That's not something that men really have to worry about. It's not something men are ever asked about. You always have this expectation from managers that when you have, for example, young single women joining the workplace, that say, well, especially in India, around her late 20s, we're going to expect her to probably go off and get married. She'll probably be taking a break for maternity leave. And I think all these expectations, and then what some of your other panelists were saying in terms of those expectations and the guilt that starts to play up, I think it hampers so many women, so many professional women. And I will tell you, in journalism, I think, especially here in India, it's a great field. I don't think you feel the gender stereotype at all as a journalist. But I did an article recently for Himal magazine that's based out of Nepal, and I spoke to some senior journalists, women, and they did talk about the underlying sexism that, say, for example, you face in India across the board. And then we spoke to a very senior journalist who said, and a former colleague of mine, that she didn't feel the discrimination in the newsroom, but she would feel it, for example, in the boardroom, because once she was promoted, it comes to that decision-making space, and all of a sudden, you feel your gender sort of having a role to play. So I think it's important to have these kind of conversations, but it also gives you a bit of a reality check about how far we have to go.
Well, that's great. And to all of your points, to all of you, what you guys have shared is fantastic insights. And adding to that, as Amrita currently pointed out, is the bias for women at the boardroom and not being considered as important as equally as men, which is always there out there. But when it comes to, as I said, the career crisis or probably the barriers to their career, this is one kind of a story in personal story. That's what Jessica has shared right now, and Sari and Dr. Soundarya together has shared the challenges that women generally face. But when it comes to, how do we manage and at the same time we pursue the career that we really want to have, how do you do that, and how did you guys have gone through your own situation? If you guys can share that, that would really be great. So, Amrita, if you can start from your end, and then...
Sure. Well, I think when you talk about whether women are intentional about their careers, I think that especially, again, we're talking about very privileged, we are privileged enough to make our own choices, and like one of your panelists said, I didn't see any other way. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to be a journalist since I was pretty young, it turns out, and I sort of just went for it. Also, you look at the luck of circumstances. I joined TV news at a time that it was sort of exploding in India. It's sort of all over the place right now, but it's been a great decade. You sort of just do go for it. You were talking earlier a little bit, Nisha, about the fact that it's a tough workplace. It is in terms of the hours we keep. And so now, for the first time in about 9 years, I'm enjoying having weekends off and sort of chilling a little bit more. But it's a fabulous investment, I think, and the freedom to be able to make that investment in yourself, to get to where you're going, to have good bosses who mentor you and allow you to reach that potential. And that really is a dream, I think. I do know that I'm not at the stage yet where, for example, I have kids. I don't have to worry about that yet. But I say worry because, as you said, of course, it's a happy occasion. But I see how the young mothers around me do have to juggle all these, and I just feel that just adds on. And I suppose if there was a way to end guilt, that would be a great start.
It would be a great start. Yes, indeed. Jessica, would you like to add your thoughts on that?
We're talking a lot about guilt, and I think that is definitely something that I have battled with. Somebody I saw tweeting was saying that blogging kind of helped me work through my feelings. I definitely think that it was free therapy for me. And I think it's a good way to kind of talk to lots of different people and sort of kind of work through your feelings. I think that I'm at a point now with my career that I am thinking more about being intentional with my career as I kind of look through a new phase for myself. One of the things that I've been kind of fighting through, or just kind of thinking through on my own, is what are the next steps for me? I set out this goal to be a blogger, to make a living off of this, to kind of help elevate human resources and recruiting, and provide a platform for average practitioner. And what is the next step? I've never had to plan this sort of thing out. It sort of just kind of occurred. So these next couple months are going to be something that I'm going to be spending a lot of time being mindful, and I'm going to be thinking about my long-term plan and where my family fits into that is in terms of what aligns with my career.
Great. So, Sari, if you can talk a little bit about you have led a study in the recent time that group and women and men measure their success in different ways. Where men equate with salary, women with salary, doing what I love, and being challenged as equally important factors in the career. So I really wanted to highlight this particular study when it comes to talking about it, and when it comes to women, very particularly, as Amrita said in the beginning, for her, she really wanting to have that particular career from the very beginning. But some women like Jessica, she said she accidentally got into HR and then accidentally got into But how about you when it comes to deriving a success for in your own career? Is this the career that you really dreamt of and wanting to have and becoming a successful leader in that particular arena, or you just drive along the way and then find success at the real end of it? Um, Sari, can you hear
Okay,
us?
yeah, I can. There's a little disturbance. Okay, so if I was to share about my own career, so one thing that's always had is I've always done things that I've truly enjoyed, or I follow my heart wherever it takes me, and that's meant that it's taken me to very random places and to very diverse experiences. Uh, my education happens to be in Russian literature and
I guess we kind of lost Sari's connection.
and the kind of it I was introduced into it. But my first job was that with a business magazine. I reported for a while, and within 6 months, I was on to my first startup, which is a media startup, and we created something that was fairly unique way back then. This is the first dot-com boom in India, 1990 to 2000. And everything I know about work is really having worked at the startup. I did my stint in the corporate space, and then I was back to being on my own in 2006. Uh, so irrespective of what I've done, the thing that's always driven me is more heart than head. And if I compare it to the traditional definition of careers, to us, a lot of careers have been very prescriptive. And I think we are a generation that were brought on a diet of prescriptive careers. Uh, the typical formula, engineering, MBA, go ahead and sort of be on the ladder. But over a period of time, I've discovered that there are options and opportunities at every step. And I think thanks to technology, thanks to changing nature of work, thanks to the whole entrepreneurial India, thanks to the whole startup ecosystem, thanks to a whole lot of ecosystem support at all levels, I think things are changing very beautifully for the better. And I see a lot of young people do not align to our versions of success. They do not align to our ideas of what careers should look like, which is very different from, I think, the perceptions that we had. But having said that, I think there is still a middle road for women building themselves what I call first generation stable long term careers. And I think in India we have a large number of women who still haven't had that opportunity to be able to say, to be able to be at a place where we are to say, yes, I'm going to make a choice of not having that career, but to be able to make that choice, I need that on the table first. So it's an interesting mix that for a lot of Indian women, being able to have even a plain Jane corporate career is hard. It's very, very hard. And I think that explains the battle. For us, everything else is a result of the choices, a result of our circumstances, a result of the ecosystem we're evolving in. But we're still striving for the the first degree of careers for women. And if I was to give you an analogy, it's still trying to get them a landline, in an era of mobile phones. So I think that's the shift. But maybe there will be other ways to solve. Getting more women involved in what they want to do. What are the opportunities? How do businesses engage more closely with women? How do women become business owners and maybe just employees at all levels? So I think there are undercurrents to these movements.
Well, that's great. And I really wanted to go back to one of your point that you said in the very beginning that women is not being considered as positive as men if they are not working or if they are, taking a gap in their career. So when it comes to, family and work, we need to value both as much as at the same spirit, right? And I guess most of them will definitely say that we need to value family as much as we do work. But when it comes to the point of breadwinning and caregiving, both are equally important because when one partner of our life is a breadwinner and it compensates that the other can be a caregiving person, right? So what do you really say when it comes to family and life events? So our women are more likely to experience this sort of family related career interruptions than men. or how can women be able to manage that in a better fashion that you would suggest?
Right. So I think there are two ways to look at it. One is if I take a super macro view at a very large level, I think this is an interplay of what I call social conditioning slash religion and designed a certain way 200 years ago, set of norms. We still have a lot of legacy norms from that place. And so was the societal conditioning. So what meant is that having a career really meant that everyone's going to have two jobs. And I think that is one of the showstoppers in terms of uh, trying to get women into the kind of careers that we believe they would have. And and as far as and again, if you talk to millennials, you get a different response. You talk to somebody who works in a PSC kind of setup, you get a different response. So I think at every level, you get a different response on what work-life redesign should look like. We had a very interesting conversation today at the summit where this gentleman who was a senior Microsoft executive really bargained with his organization to work from home in his village in Kochi, and turned entrepreneurial while he was at it. But turns out he did this because his wife, who was a doctor, never had a career while he was at Microsoft. So he had to take a back seat to let his wife, who's a doctor, really start practicing because their worry was that the children will never see what a working mom looks like. So I think these are conversations that the younger generation, the millennials, the people in colleges talk about more actively than we did. So that seems more hopeful than it ever was.
That's great. Well, Jessica, we know that over here in the United States, male partner is becoming more of a caregiving, and then female partner is becoming more of a breadwinning person in that home, which is actually an intentional choice of helping their woman or helping their partner become successful in their career. But how about let's go back to India and Dr. Soundarya, if we can talk a little bit more of what is the status over there in India when it comes to male partner becoming a caregiving person and female partner becoming the sole breadwinner of that family.
So this is definitely a trend, that one is able to see to a larger extent. The interesting part is, while many of us believe that this is a trend that is more prevalent in the metros, in the work that we have done in some of the rural areas of Tamil Nadu, I have seen that this whole understanding and letting go and allowing the more capable person, or the one who's more capable of earning within a couple, to actually take the lead is something that's been happening for a long time. Especially if you take the closer to the bottom of the pyramid, for instance, microfinance industry, or if you take any of the industries segments that are closer to the bottom of the pyramid, you would find that the husbands are ready to allow the women and even enable them. I'm not just talking about those husbands who don't play a part at all in the woman's life, and where the woman is left to her own devices. Not that type. I'm talking about those men who actually enable the women and allow her to take the lead as far as putting together the family kitty is concerned. So that is something that's been happening for a long time. In fact, this whole conversation, forgive my throat, I'm having a very bad case of laryngitis. I'm trying to see how I can I can enunciate better. So if you take this whole conversation of women's careers, it's a very, very interesting discussion, simply because on the one hand, you have organizations that are very keen to engage with women, simply because of the fact that, world over, especially in the Western world, especially in the USA, you have a lot of research that has actually proven that gender diversity means a higher productivity, higher profitability, though there is a lot of debate on that. There quite a few times you do hear things to the contrary. But nevertheless, the business case, as we call it, has been sufficiently proven. So therefore, organizations here in India are very keen on engaging with women, at various levels and different types of positions, all of that. But is the woman that they seek keen on engaging with the organization. So if you look at, I was recently at an organization running a workshop for them about a week ago, and I had this most interesting discussion where the women's network group. I was addressing about 150, 200 of the top women across that group, and they were pointing out this very interesting fact, which is that you need all the enablers for women in the initial stages of their life. You need the fact that women will take, and we will have undulating careers, ups and downs. They will take breaks. Therefore, you need support system at that time. But when all of that is done and dusted, okay, and the woman is probably in her late 30s or early 40s, and she is at a time when she is actually, so to say, free of most of the responsibilities. I mean, she has done her, child rearing and childbearing, and her children are probably in a stage where they can manage for themselves. At that stage, what motivates her? So if you look at the statistics, you will find that in India we have less than 8% of women at the just below the senior level. So you have women who could be business leaders, who could be thought leaders, who could run organizations, who the organizations want to run organizations and businesses for them. But at that point of time, they then choose to take different paths. So it then becomes a prerogative for the company to devise an employee value proposition. And in this case, the specific women employee value proposition, to try and create a job that would be fascinating, engaging, and motivating for her. So it's a question of, as Sari was mentioning towards the beginning of the conversation, and she was talking about the various drivers like fear, guilt, or self-actualization, self-satisfaction, all of those things. The interesting part is what drives that. What is it? From where do those women get jobs? So if it's entirely to do with your own self-actualization, then you don't need an organization to give you a job. You can be an entrepreneur. So I think, in my own case, that's how it happened. I was working for Citibank at the beginning of my career, worked with them for about 3 years, had got married, had my first child, took a break, and then found it was extremely difficult to return, knocked on the doors of several organizations talking about, what I have done and, would it be useful for them and would they appoint me in a flexible basis, found it was not possible, went into teaching, taught for about 6 years, and then it was this thought that was, kind of creating that pressure cooker effect in my own mind. Why does this happen? Why can't the woman have those choices? And that led to my creating the organization called Avatar in the year 2000, from when I became an entrepreneur. So subsequent to that, I would say that my own life has been more intentional. From 2000 upwards, it has been more intentional. It's not so accidental. I do go for certain choices. I do look for partners who will help us in the broad vision of getting a 50-50 gender balance in the Indian workplace. I do look at, organizations, educational institutions, whoever would partner with us in, reaching that goal. But up until before that, it's a question mark. So, so it's a fascinating discussion, Nisha, and I don't know if we would have time for all of the points that come in.
No, we won't be having, but thanks. We really appreciate that you're sharing your journey along with us of that career transition, which each and every one of you, once you share your own perspective, your own experiences, and how you kind of sorted it out, will help our audience, that's for sure. And we have Simran back on our show. Hey, Simran, thank you so much for being here with us today. We kind of missed you at the very beginning.
Yeah, so apologies for the technology glitch, I think, at my end.
No problem at all. So going back to what Dr. Saundarya has shared, and then we would want to get your perspective as well. So, we are, at this point, we can see some of the gender diversity and pay inequality at the workplace. But really, what is the cause for women to quit their job? Is it because of the salary, or is it because of the leadership, which is not good, or probably some kind of a misinterpretation, like what we had recently? Microsoft CEO said to women that not asking for a raise is a good karma. So this would turn down most of the women or female workers out there when it comes to, hey, I need to depend on my karma in order to get to the career where I wanted to be, or in order to climb the ladder. So what do you say when it comes to women, what makes them to really quit their job? What really
Okay.
turns
Okay.
them down when it comes to quit their job?
Right. See, I mean, I know that there are several reasons that we can kind of look at when we talk about why women leave their jobs, and in essence, if it's really their personal choice, that's perfect. But when you're talking about it becoming a compulsion, and they're actually forced to leave their jobs, I think what goes beyond, as per me, and I think this is something that I'm sharing from my own experience as I've worked, that what goes beyond even pay, equity is when you're facing a situation where there is a very negative work environment in terms of inherent biases playing out. So what you tend to experience is that when you have managers who kind of behave differently between the two genders, so they treat your male colleagues differently as compared to you. For example, when they try, and like, I'm a young mother, right, and I'm a new mother, and when you come back to work, or instead of actually trying to couch the concern under condescending behavior, I think it's better that you're upfront and you say what you feel. So for example, there's always this trust deficit. I mean, I believe that it is a pure trust deficit, that you think that somebody who has say new or additional family commitments will not be able to take on a high priority project which has very tight timelines. So these are things that there'll be a passing remark about things like, since you're working from home today, is it good to call you in the afternoon? You might be resting. I really don't think these things actually, kind of help the situation. In my view, what that does is that, even beyond pay inequity, even beyond the glass ceiling, that kind of trust deficit that exists, which stems from inherent biases, and instead of really looking at me trying to deliver as per say timelines that you may have committed to me as as a manager, or delivering as per the quality standards of the company, their bigger concern is about whether you're actually resting in the afternoon, or are you going to be so distracted because you have a new baby, that you won't be able to give your full commitment to a project. And like I said, that I think is probably one of the reasons why a lot of women may actually choose to leave. In my that's really my opinion. Of course, there are multiple reasons. There will be pay, there will be absence of infrastructural support, there will not be practices that are supportive. Um, I tend to talk from the perspective of a young, more than young, actually a new mother, rather than anything else, because I think that's really, kind of, been the situation in my case. I couldn't work from home. I've worked about 11 years in HR advisory in extremely large organizations. I couldn't, find one organization which would allow me to work from home despite, great recommendations. And that was essentially because, like I mentioned, that, there's really, you tend to associate, firstly, new family commitments with, distraction, lack of concentration with respect to work. And secondly, you don't trust somebody who actually works from home. You assume that that person is probably not working. That's really my view on why most women might be actually quitting.
Well, thank you. Well, that is true when it comes to, trust and that biases that are happening. Men are assumed to be competent until proven, and whereas women is assumed to be incompetent until she proves otherwise. So, Jessica, what do you wanted to share when it comes to women not being considered as competent at the workplace, and women has to strive for that career that she really wanting to have, even if it is a promotion, even if it is getting to the board members, or even, as I said, a raise at the workplace.
So I had this unique situation, and that when I went on maternity leave, which here in the United States is definitely not long enough, and instead of the 12 weeks, I took the 10, and that was because my husband was laid off 2 weeks before my daughter was born. So we had this real weird, like, reversal at our household where, I mean, we were both working, but he was the majority breadwinner in the environment, and suddenly I became the breadwinner, and trying to balance the sort of understanding of how to take care of a baby, what's appropriate, how my brain works. It was definitely an eye-opener, and it was the first time I really understood truly that men and women prioritize life and work much differently, whereas like I would try to get things done throughout the day. My husband would wait until 30 minutes before I was to come home, and then he would unload the dishwasher and do all the crazy stuff, like just in a wild, mad dash. So I also think that women often expect that their boss is going to just notice their skills or areas of expertise. And so not necessarily women need to be braggy, but they need to be more, I guess, aggressive and just out in the open and let the boss know these are the things that I'm doing great. This is the expectation that I'm setting for you. One of my favorite books is Lean In, and it's an easy read, but it kind of gives you some understanding and maybe why we don't always, as women, like we ask for permission before we just go in, and men, on the other hand, work a separate way. I think women are just going to have to be more aggressive and more open about their intentions. One of the things about me that is, I think, a good character trait, definitely wasn't always seen that way, is that I'm really honest, and I'm also a little brash. So I just say it. It comes out of my mouth. It is what it is. And that got me in a lot of trouble. When I was younger, people would tell me to be more polite or quiet down, you know, you're a girl. And it's definitely how I've built my brand and my business, is just saying it how it is. I find if you're extremely direct, the right people will find you, and you'll collaborate and learn to work with those people. But you have to just put yourself out there and ask. Otherwise, if you don't ask for it, so they're not going to give it to you. They aren't going to just do it because they're nice. You have to ask first.
Right, ask for it. And I know many companies out there are doing initiatives. I'm not really sure where that audio disturbance is coming from. Vibe that I'm getting. Okay, it's great. Thank you. So companies are doing some initiatives. I think earlier in May, Yahoo, they have doubled their maternity leave when it comes to helping the women, and even people who want to take that break when it comes to taking care of their family during that crucial moment that they really wanted to spend with their family. But when it comes to, you know, making the most out of women, or to unlock the full potential of women at work, what do you say to the corporates? And I really want to have the thoughts from all of our panelists. First, let's start with Amrita, and then we can go back to everyone, I guess.
Well, actually, would you repeat that? I'm having a little trouble with the audio.
No, how can our corporates unlock the full potential of women at work? Amrita, I guess you have opened a live window out there. So there is a live YouTube channel that is running, so we can hear that audio, and that's the trouble for you too. So probably if you can close it, or if you can mute that, that would be great. Maybe a different window, I guess. So because the sound disturbance that we are getting is from your window, so probably you might have opened the live channel somewhere else on your desktop, I guess. Got it? Okay.
No, is that better though?
Yeah, it is better right now.
Okay, so quickly, before the audio glitches come back, I think that one of the, I mean, what I wanted to just focus on is, because I was sort of talking to some people today, and I think that pay parity comes up a lot, right? And I think this comes back to what we read in Lean In fact, is that many women don't feel comfortable actually asking for what they want. I think social conditioning comes to play, and I think you'll find in an Indian setting as well, people feel sort of awkward, or they feel shy to just go and say, well, hey, this is what I deserve, whereas guys don't necessarily have that kind of that conditioning, and I think that works against women. I think you're seeing that change a little bit, but I think it comes down to, again, like redrawing or redefining some of these identity lines.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for fixing your audio. Well, Sari, yeah, what do you say when it comes to, what do you want to give an advice to corporates when it comes to unlocking women potential?
Okay, so I think there are two sides to the story. I was hearing what Simran was saying and what Amrita just mentioned. So uh, I still think that flex is a four-letter word that corporates need to get over, uh, and they need to really sort of uh, look at it at the redesigned value of the workplace. And this will not only benefit women, it will also benefit everyone. And I think what a lot of this conversation is also causing is it's creating dissonance amongst rest of the organization because there's so much focus on women and there's so much talk about diversity, and these are attention grabbers within companies, right? I think somewhere there what we are doing is we are feeding managerial resentment. We are feeding managerial dissonance without resolving those underlying issues first. We need to look at the workplace redesign from a very large uh, place, but we also need to make small steps which allow for flexibility, even in very tiny modules, very tiny dosage, very small steps. But workplace flexibility cannot be ignored away. The assumption that there will be women at leadership levels without really bringing them in the workforce. So I still think flexibility is a key driver at all levels. I think corporate America never did it. India has a chance.
Well, that's great. Well, in fact, we have a lot of tweets are coming up at this point, and we have one interesting quote that has shared right now. Is Pooja? She's asking, are our preferences change post-marriage or child post-marriage, or yeah, or even after maternity, I guess, or being a woman? So when it comes to preferences and when it comes to getting that preferences uh, workable in a corporate world, flexibility does matter a lot, I guess. So what do you say, Dr. Soundarya, when it comes to, unlocking woman potential, and is flexibility a part of it in?
Um, most certainly, yes. In fact, in most of the talks that I'm invited to, in most of the forums that I speak, I often use the quote that flexibility is the oxygen of women's careers, especially the Indian woman's career. Without flexibility, more than statistics say that more than 30% of women will not have a chance to return to the workplace in any economically productive way that they choose. So a lot of the reason why entrepreneurship among women, especially micro entrepreneurship, micro franchising is picking up, is because of the enormous amount of flexibility that it provides. So if organizations are keen on having women in their workplaces, are keen on creating, not only a gender balanced workplace, but also a inclusive workplace that is built not just for the archetypal clockwork of male careers, but also something which includes different working styles, then flexibility is a big requisite. In fact, if you look at all the career enablers that together help a woman lead a life where she rises to the fullest of her potential, if you look at that, then you will find that apart from various enablers such as education, a good network, a mentor that is required by most women, jobs that provide themselves, that provide the kind of motivation and encouragement to her, a very inspiring peer circuit, an inspiring peer culture. So among all of that, flexibility probably is rated at number one. So that is definitely critical, is definitely needed. But when does a woman really use that flexibility? When does she benefit out of it? Does she benefit out of it at early stages? Does she benefit out of it when she is at the crossroads which everybody goes through in terms of marriage and childbirth and all of that? Or is she primarily going to benefit out of it when she is in any of her caregiver roles? And is she cognizant about the fact that she requires flexibility? So all of these are again big motherhood discussions, and I'm using the motherhood very consciously, the word, primarily because of the fact that women who need to understand how their career journey is going to be crafted. One of the important pieces of work that we do is with educational institutions. We run a program called Fair Chance, and we run it in primarily those education institutions where there is a majority of women. They are either women-only institutions, educational institutions, or they are women, institutions where women are a large number. So when we speak to the girls there and we speak about the kind of career choices and options that they are going to be looking at, we talk to them about this aspect of intentional career pathing. How do you design a career path for yourself? Do you factor in the fact that some of the times you might be requiring flexibility? You might be making certain choices keeping in mind that this is your overall life plan, and within that, this is the purpose that your career has, for you in it. And what does that career really mean to you? I mean, is it self-actualization? Is it money? Is it a fact that it provides you with a better lifestyle? So all of those things put together, I think at that level, at the level, at entry levels, at the levels where women today are definitely getting better educated, more numbers of them are passing out from engineering colleges, and so would that really create a different kind of a landscape in the Indian corporates? So we work with so many companies that are keen on increasing the number of women in their entry level, at entry levels. So their big question is, what do we do? So I often tell them, go to where the whole thing begins. Go to the colleges. That's where the entire thing happens, and even before that, actually.
So you think this continued education can help women advance in their career?
Continued education, of course, would help women in their career, because upskilling and reskilling is a big factor that ensures continued employability of women. But I'm talking more about the mindsets that get created at entry levels. In the when the girl is ready to be presented to the corporate world as a finished product, somebody who has completed her education, who has certain perspectives in terms of what she wants to do with her life, at that stage, does she look at a career as an important aspect? Does she look at having an identity of her own as an important aspect? I mean, forget about whether it's a professional career or it's entrepreneurship or it's any of the other routes that she may take. Does she even feel that she has a choice? I mean, I completely respect women who say that I'm not interested in a professional career. I would like to be at home. This is what I find meaning and depth in, and I totally respect that woman. But it has to be her choice.
Correct.
It has to be something that she believes is important for her to do, and not something that she's coerced to do, on whichever count.
Well, Dr. Soundarya, thank you so much for sharing all that, and thank you so much to everyone for making this panel discussion a delightful one. And I know, Sari, you are feeling too much tired right now after a hectic day, and you're sitting in front of a computer, sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much for that. But before we wrap up, if you all can share, your quote, or probably one single tip for all the women out there when it comes to getting back to the career that they love to do, not that they, do it for the sake of doing it, but they love to do, getting back to that single career. What is that one single quote that you wanted to share? Sari, you go ahead, and then
I think I'll borrow from Pepsi's tagline long time back, open up. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of help. There's a lot of movement in this direction. Plugging into it would be wonderful. Open up.
Right. Jessica?
I will say that you should do your research, create a plan, and then work your butt off, because it is a lot of work. But if you set your mind to it, I'm a glass half full kind of girl. I believe that you can achieve whatever that we set our mind to as women.
Thank you. Hey, Amrita.
Okay, I'm going to go with taglines like Sari and go with just do it. I think you have to really, as Jessica's also saying, really put your heart and soul behind something you really want to do. But Nisha, I also want to point out especially I think for young people, and I see this a lot with a lot of the kids who joined even as I was leaving Senior IBN, it's also okay to have that period where things just plateau. I think in the media we're so used to having such highs and lows. We don't realize it's okay also sometimes just to take stock of what you're doing. Remember that you're there out of choice, ideally, and then sort of think things through. But if there's something you're really passionate about, just go for it.
Thank you. And Simran.
Yeah, I think just a couple of things that I mean, those have worked for me, so that's the reason why I'm trying to share that. One is, of course, I feel women tend to network a little less as compared to men from a career point of view. They're brilliant when it comes to relationships, but actually, conscious networking, I think so doing that is very important. So I think build those bonds from a career point of view. And secondly, I think take calculated risks. I think it's very important. We try and hold, like, everybody's mentioned in different ways. For me, I think it's very clear that, if I wasn't taking the calculated risks that I have, I probably wouldn't be actually, defining a deliberated career path, as per me. So I think those two things very important.
That's right. And from the person who suggested this topic, none other person, Dr. Soundarya, what do you say when it comes to women, and you wanted to add a quote to them when it comes for them to choose a career that they would love to do?
Well, I would just say it's your time. After a long time, the Indian woman professional is really the heroine of a lot of discussions going on in the corporate world today. So I would just say it's your time. Decide what you want to do. You have a voice now. Definitely after previous generations, it is the time right now for you to define and determine what you wish to do with your life, and just go for it.
Well, thank you so much for this inspirational talk. To everyone, ladies, you are out there making a difference and inspiring all of the women out there. And thank you so much for taking your time, for being with us today and sharing your valuable insights with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Nisha. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And to our audience, thank you so much for sharing all the tweets and questions on Twitter stream, and we really, really appreciate that. And we appreciate if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would be great, so you won't miss any of our future shows. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.